Gratitude is always a good practice, and may that be something that we model this year, that we ask each other every day, what are we grateful for? Because just the word thank you is something of speaking into the future, of saying what are you thankful for. The second context why we are doing this, as people of excellence, there are specific characteristics in a person of excellence. And one of that characteristics is humility. Myself and Tina spoke about humility yesterday and just the importance of a leader to be humble. Now, humility means, in this context of which we are doing this leadership investment, is to say that we will have enough humility to know that each one of us can learn from one another. There's not one person sitting here that are saying, I know everything. So the first characteristic of a leader is somebody with humility, enough humility to learn from one another. People of excellence are also people that are grounded in specific values. And in AFGRI, we've got our values, and all of us are grounded in that specific values. And then we respect one another. So what we want to do with this process is, because of the vision that we have in AFGRI, and Chris is going to share with us a lot about that today, because of that, we have we have developed some processes where we can invest in the lives of people. And in the back that is sponsored by AFGRI Agri Services for you is a brochure of some of the processes that we are involving people that we can really invest in their lives. And one of those is, I know that we are called to be the leader in our industry. And again, Chris will speak more about that. But the calling to lead in the industry is why we are starting something off like an investment in our leaders today. The second one is that we have a people development process, and there is a brochure in there that you can have a look and see what that process is all about. All of that is linked to our values. And then we also, with Patrick, that is here with us today, have some transformational leadership sessions that is also another avenue of investment into our leaders. What we've got for you today, this is also a spin-off of the Global Leadership Summit, and on an annual basis, there are about 400,000 leaders over 128 countries that are going through the Leadership Summit. And what we've done is just to start blessing you for the year is, again, inside of the package that you've got there is a DVD. Some of you will have the DVD of 2016. Some of you will have, it's 12 leadership investment sessions of 2017. And there's some amazing speakers. We've got Sheryl Sandberg, who's the CEO of Facebook. There's some really speakers in there that you want to listen to and hear what they are saying in terms of leadership in our country. So to kick this process off, we want to show you a video that will really give you something of the heart of what we want to do in terms of the leadership investment. So I'm going to go over and just show you that video to start off with.
Okay, I hope you learned something from that. The important thing is what we learned over many years is that as an individual, it's important for us to grow as an individual. For me, as the CEO, I see the benefits of you in terms of your work life. I see the benefits of you performing in terms of coming to the office, having budgets, performing against those budgets, being driven by good leaders. But the reality is, if you're not happy at home, chances are that it's going to affect you sitting here. So I was asked to talk about leadership and vision. I'm not sure if I know enough about it, but I'm sure that while you're here is to hear a little bit of the way I see it. I need to just put a little bit of a condition to it, in the sense that I'm talking not as the CEO today, I'm talking to you as Chris. In what I've experienced, the way that I live my life, the way that things inspired me as a leader, the way that I will do things, you may find it right or wrong, which is good, because it's not necessarily that I'm doing it right. I may do things that's completely wacko, or the way you see it. But this is the way that I operate. And I think that will hopefully give you something that you can think about going forward that you can say, okay, this is how he does it. But it also may get you to think a little bit about, your own life and your own experience and your own vision and your own leadership style. Because I do believe that even though in business we say you have leaders and you have managers, and neither one of those are more important than the other one. We're all important in an organization. I always say to my boys, if you look at a rugby team, the prop is as important as the wing who scores the try. So it's very important that you understand that. It's not that we want to say that in the organization the one is better or more important than the other one. In my life, it's really just to get to a point to say, what is really the thing that drives you to develop yourself? Because ultimately, if you have 5, 6, 7 areas in your life that needs attention, and you only focus on the money side, budgets, work experience, you're not going to be a good husband, you're not going to be a good father, and your work ultimately will suffer as a result of that. Your personal development as an emotional being, I like to think of people in 3 areas: spiritual, emotional, and intellect. I do think that those 3 areas are all equally important. I said to many people before that, and it's quite interesting if you listen to some of the rugby coaches we mentioned, Diana Kamoa before, where you speak about the importance of character when you play a rugby game against the All Blacks in the last 10 minutes. It's really the guy who's got the strongest character that's going to take you forward, not necessarily the guy who understands the game the best or the guy who really can read the game the best. It's really that guy of character to push through that's going to take you through. And I think that's the important thing for me, because ultimately if I can have a guy in Africa looking at the problem, but I know that he's also not going to just use his intellect to weigh up pros and cons, but he's also going to pray about it. It's awesome for me, because I know that he's going to find some influence, he's going to find some wisdom to deal with that. So when I talk today, it's really 2 hours is a lot. Hopefully, I'm not sure if I have enough to say for 2 hours, but there's enough that I can say that hopefully will generate a bit of an understanding of how I operate as a person, as an individual. I also need to say that I'm a strong believer. You may know that. My basis in my life is faith. I'm a Christian. I always said to many people before that I'm not here to convince anybody to be a follower of Christ, but that's just who I am. So when I talk about faith, I talk about my faith in God, and how I use that in terms of creating my own visions in life. Because the one thing that you need to remember as an individual, you will only judge yourself the way that you know. It's very difficult for people to judge themselves by things they don't know. So how do you judge yourself in areas of your life, and how do you push yourself to get or achieve more things if you're not at a point where you can challenge yourself in those areas? And if you set a budget, we're in budget discussions now, I'm sure that you guys are busy with budgets. But when you set a budget, you set a budget of what you believe you can achieve. Otherwise, you know that if you set the budget and you stretch yourself, the chances are you're not going to get bonus next year. So you're already working back from bonus to say, but in order for me to get a bonus, I need to put a target there that I believe I can achieve. And that's how we operate in our personal life as well. We say to ourselves, I believe that if you don't have a word or vision, you will perish. In other words, if you don't know where you're going, why even start out to go somewhere? Because you will just fool around the whole time. So the understanding is that if you need to get to a point where you need to stretch yourself, you need somebody else to actually get you to that point of stretching yourself. So when I go through a process of saying to AFGRI that the vision for AFGRI that I believe is important is to drive food security across the continent, it's not because I just think it's a nice dream to have. I truly believe in a process of praying about it, understanding what is my purpose in life and how do I drive that purpose in life forward, and then pray about it. It gives me that extension to say, but it's not me setting that vision, because I would never be able to achieve that. So it's almost asking God to say, in my life, where do I need to be? What can I achieve? And when I achieve that, it's almost to say, okay, Lord, this is what I need you to achieve this, because I can't do it on my own. So that humility comes on a basis that you can't achieve it. It's not me that's going to make a budget, or it's not me that's going to position AFGRI across the continent. It's you guys, but with that we need grace, and we need miracles, and we need funding, and there's so many other things which I have no control over. So it's important for me as a person to say to myself, if I go and think about a group restructuring, it's not just something that comes up and say, okay, well, that's, I've been bored for 2 months, or as Tina says, I sit on my chair and then he knows he's worried. So if I go really and pray about it, my prayer is, Lord, what's the next step? Because I also believe that a company needs to reinvent itself every 7 years or 6 years. You can't just stay where you are, because if you stay where you are, you're going backward. So it also speaks to what do you use as measurement, and it also speaks to who do you measure yourself against. Because if you measure yourself constantly against your peers in the market, you're never going to be better than them. Because why would you? You're just going to cut costs and you're going to reduce costs, but you don't know what their visions are. So why would you get better to them? So your measurement must almost be something that you position yourself, or some target that you put there yourself, so that you can say, I'm going to work towards that because it gives me purpose in life. And that motivation for me is faith-based, so that I can pray about it and say, okay, well, I know that's where I'm going, and I know, I have the best help I can ever get, so I'm definitely going to get there in time. It may be that I'm not here, so please remember that when I think about AFGRI, or when I think about vision, I don't necessarily think about me. If I think about the vision for AFGRI, I think about where AFGRI should be in 10 years or 20 years or 50 years. I don't think where I would want to retire, and therefore if I can get this in 7 years, I can retire rich, because this is what I can achieve, and that's how many costs I can save, and what the profit's going to be. I'm thinking about what you guys, who's younger than me, some older than me, but what you guys can achieve, and the generations after us, what they should achieve, so that AFGRI as an entity can become more and more important over the next 20, 30, 40 years. So that's a little bit of my thinking in terms of vision, and we can talk much more about it, because I think ultimately it comes back to your home environment, to your personal life environment, to how you dream yourself. Because if I say to I've got a constant discussion with my boys and my little girl in terms of, what do they want to achieve? And they're all teenagers, so they immediately tell us, well, I don't know, I don't know where I want to be. So why should they? They're, 16-year-old or 17-year-old. So it's important to just ask yourself that question sometimes, as a person, because if you're a father or if you're a husband, you are a leader by default. So if you're a husband in your house, the leader of the house is the husband. Sorry, ladies, but that's true. You have to be a leader in your house. So if you're not a leader, if you as an husband in your household doesn't have the ability to think or pray or understand where you're going, how is your wife ever going to understand where you're going? So if you say to your wife, listen, we're going to Cape Town, and you get in a car and you drive to Durban, is she not going to be a little bit worried? Do you really know where you're going? And I think that's a simple example, but it's really what you need to think about in terms of everyone in an aspect in your life is a leader in that area. And everyone in an aspect of your life is a manager in that area. And so you need to think about the roles that you're fulfilling in your personal life and how you can develop that. Because just to focus on financial development and your retirement plan is not necessarily going to get you to a point where you still have your wife next to you when you actually retire. Because she may think along the way, but she's not important any longer. And I think that's the important thing for you as a person, is to look holistically about you. So we started the process some years ago with one of the universities to try and do that, to try and develop individuals. Some of you were part of those processes. But I think in a sense what you're starting here today, Christo, is almost to take us into an area where you as an individual come here not for us as AFGRI. Yes, we will see the benefit. I believe strongly the more holistic developed you are in those three areas of intellect, emotions, and spiritual, the better worker, the more better achiever you will be, the better performer you will be. But that's not the goal. The goal is to develop you as an individual so that you can be a better person. Yeah, sure. So some of you might know this. I worked in the States. So I my life really changed in 1987 when I came to the Lord. But then in 1995, 96, I worked for Standard Bank at the time. And I studied theology, as some of you may know, and I really didn't study something for merchant banking environment. So I started at the bottom, which was awesome for me. I was a letters of credit clerk, for those of you who understand the financial environment. And it was, even though I received fantastic increases every year, 20% of zero is not really much, So for the first 2 years in my working life, I tend to go back to my superiors and say, look, really, I need something more. I was still doing my MBA, part-time, driving backwards and forwards from Pretoria, so I really need more money to survive. And as I walked back from the one discussion, that's the third year, I clearly heard the Lord saying to me, but Chris, you're working for me. And I think that changed my perception of life, because from that point in time, I realized that I will get paid whatever I'm worth. I won't necessarily get paid of what I can negotiate, but I'll get paid of what I'm worth. And I think that allowed me to rethink of where I should be in life. I also then realized that my journey is not, it's not something that I can decide on myself. And I always made sure that whenever something comes up, even coming and joining AFGRI was a prayer process for me to say, Lord, is that where you want me? Do I need to go to AFGRI? So in that process, in 2002, ABSA sent me I then joined ABSA in 1999, and ABSA sent me to New York to manage a business that caters for trade finance in Latin America. I think it was awesome for me because I had almost a small team of 9 people within a much bigger organization, but you literally on your own. But I think the benefit for me is I had a lot of time that I could spend just praying about the business and where we need to take that business at the time. And that one of my flights coming back from Mexico, I clearly had the word that I should create a business plan for food security across the world. In other words, how food commodities move across different continents in the southern parts of the world. And our money actually moves across different parts of the world 24 hours a day, from the US to Europe to China, Hong Kong. So I wrote about three pages of this business plan that I thought I should write. And this was at the end of 2002, December 2002. So interesting for me at that stage, I didn't know about AFGRI. I mean, I was a merchant bank. I really enjoyed my life. I had 3 kids. Megan wasn't born yet. So for me, it was almost, okay, Lord, so what now? So I left it in my office. A couple of weeks or months later, I thought I should I was probably bored. So I scribbled I drafted a picture of what I think the logo of this business plan should be. So it was a sword that I drafted, or that I've, geteken het. And it was a sword that was almost unveiled by a piece of material. So this was December 2002. And then I came back. I was asked, Barclays bought ABSA. I was asked to come back in end of 2004, 2005. So AFGRI approached me in March 2005, and I joined AFGRI 1st of July 2005. Obviously praying about it, but long forgotten about this business case that I wrote, even though I brought everything from my office in New York to South Africa and to my house. And at one stage, I was asked by the chairman when Jeff Wright left to join the process of becoming CEO of the group. I didn't realize at the time really what it meant, and I said to my wife, look, we should probably pray about this, because my immediate reaction was, I didn't apply because my focus was on financial services. I was at that time heading up financial services. But being asked by the chairman, I said to my wife, look, maybe we should just pray about this, because I won't accept it if the Lord tells me not to do it. So I said, so we've gone through a prayer process, and then felt the Lord saying that I must allow him to appoint me where he wants me to be appointed. So I immediately knew at that stage that I will get the job, even though we were still 8 people in the process, because they won't allow me to be part of the process if he's not going to give it to me. So why going through the process? But it was amazing for me to understand the whole process and to go through it and to really see what the people want in AFGRI. But the amazing thing was at my 40th birthday, which was 2008, which was end of August, and my appointment came 24th of September, and I started as 1st of October. So this was a month before my actual appointment. I had my wife arranged a 40th birthday party for me, and I had a friend coming to me, and he said to me, Chris, I don't know why, but this whole week I felt I should give you this present. So I just left it in my study. So eventually at 12, after everybody's gone, my wife and I and her sister sat down and we opened all the presents. And when I opened this box, it was a sword that very similarly looked to the one that I drafted in 2002. So at that point in time, the Lord said to me, what you've seen in 2002, you will now see in the material. So for me, it's not a dream of being here. You know, for me, it's really understanding what AFGRI's role is in reaching people in Africa. So when we talk about, when you talk about Africa, when we're talking about changing lives in Africa, that's really why we're here. You know, we have the one opportunity, which very few companies actually have, if you think about it, where you can make money and also change people's lives at the same time. Because you're working with food and you're working with people's lives on the other side. So you must understand, for me to then go through a process of coming to AFGRI, going through a process of restructure, my first question was, okay, now that I'm being appointed and I sit in this position, what do I do? And in my first 2 months of being CEO of AFGRI, I immediately thought, but we can do so much more in Africa if we're not a listed entity. And you know the story of being delisted and, you know, people coming across my path really that wanted to do what I believe in doing. So what we have is shareholders that believe in reaching people in Africa, and what we have is really a group of people and managers and CEOs that really have the talent of positioning us there. So it's not for me, I'm just a dreamer. I'm just the one that's okay, that's where we're going. So I'm just telling, how do we get to Cape Town? I don't know. We're going to Cape Town. But I'm sure Tinus and Rowan is going to get us there. So for me, it's important to then have people around me and have people supporting us as CEOs of the group that can really take us there, that can really understand in a vision. And it probably comes back, Krista, to a bit of understanding of a good leader. I strongly believe that a strong leader, even though you may not like where I'm going, I must be able to convince you that where we're going is actually a good place. That's a strong leader. If you think about bad people like Hitler, you know, he actually got a lot of people around him to go in the same direction, even though we know it wasn't great. But I think that is really the one responsibility of a leader, is then to be sure where you're going. You can't be a leader if you don't know where you're going. You can't be a leader in being a Democrat. I'm sorry to say that, but I don't believe leadership is democratic. I honestly don't, because if you go through a process like I do in really praying about what we should do. Take the restructuring process or the expansion process as an example. I really got to a point where I was worried about AFGRI in terms of how we operate, you know, what's happening, we're not performing, we're not reaching our targets. And I started praying about it. And I've honestly got to a point where I believe that the best way for us to go forward and to be agile enough so that we can do more things and actually get into Africa was to, you know, get into a point where we have focused entities and we get more money so that we can drive those focused entities. So when I then go through that process, which took me 2 months, and I sat in front of Johan and Peter Badenhorst and the Exco team and Malco, I'm not going to say, this is what I think, what do you think, let's vote about it. I'm going to say to them, look guys, this is what I believe. And I'm going to convince them to believe in the same thing so that they can drive the process with me. So I think that is, sometimes it's negative because leaders can be strong-headed, but I think that is for me why it's important to understand where I'm going. And I'm going to, you know, I shouldn't say this, but if you look at any good coach, a good coach understands exactly how his game plan should work. You know, you can't get a coach that say, let's get 20 people together, let's talk about how the game plan should be, and then I will implement it, because he doesn't necessarily believe in that. A good coach, a good leader, somebody who knows exactly where he's going. You may be wrong, you may not like it, but that's where he's going to go.
So important, you said to me that leadership is not a democracy. It's something that you believe in, and you get people to believe in what you are believing. Yeah. And as they buy into that vision, people start following you. Yeah. Another thing on great leadership is something that you taught me, that you've learned when you were in New York, specifically working with different cultures. people of different backgrounds. What is the benefit for you as a leader in doing that?
Yeah, I think the biggest mistakes that anybody makes, it's not just me, but I think the biggest mistake we make as senior people is you appoint people that looks like you, feels like you, talk like you. So you appoint people that you're comfortable with. And most of the time, the people that you appoint that you're comfortable with are people that's similar to yourself. And I think that's wrong. I do believe I really had a benefit in New York to lead a team that came from 5 different countries. You know, I had one Peruvian, I had a Mexican, which was crazy. I had, honestly, I had, a true American. I had 2 Brazilians and myself and another guy from AFSA, 2 Afrikaner boys. And I think the one thing that it taught me is having the benefit of those different cultures. Because, the unfortunate thing about South Africa is because our history teaches, we differ. We're different, we're black and white. It's not really that, to be quite honest. I mean, the culture that Bongani comes out of, or Malco comes out of, is completely different to my culture. It's not to say that he's wrong and I'm right, or I'm right, wrong and he's right. It's just to say that the best that you can get out of those guys will add value to your team. So if I can embrace diversity on the basis that I can say, you know what, the best that Malco can bring to my team, I must embrace that. And I can tell you now, Malco has probably saved us 20 million already last year just by making sure that we're not striking, or making sure we're getting the tax things through in Zambia, or helping us in Congo, Brazzaville. So there's things that he brings to the party which I just never would be able to do. And I think the problem that we have as leaders sometimes is we're looking for comfort. We're looking for people that talks to us, looks like us, smell like us, and that's wrong. So having that background, I think it's important for me, and you probably saw my announcement last night, bringing Ravasha in, bringing Tabi in from PIC, it allows me to bring in cultures that's really going to just, you can see it, and I can tell you now, in a year's time, it's going to be completely different. Because we will embrace that, and it will actually teach us more about ourselves and how we grow. And if you can do that, you as an organization and as an individual, you grow. Because we can learn. There's definitely something I can learn from them.
That says to me, as a leader, you've got faith in somebody that are guiding you in terms of this vision, but you also got faith in yourself. There's a confidence that you are portraying. I mean, if you get these different people to buy into what you believe, there must be something of confidence. And how do you take confidence and humility and just bring those two together?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's a difference between arrogance and confidence, and I think we must try and understand. I tried to teach my one son that, but yeah, Chris. I don't know if it's a confidence in my ability. I think that I must honestly tell you that I strongly believe that you must appoint people that's stronger than you. So I do believe that. I think. In Johan and now in Ravasha and in Peter Barnos, I have people around me that's definitely stronger than me. So that's the first thing. The second thing is my confidence does not necessarily come out of my own ability. My confidence comes out of the fact that I know what the Lord has told me to do, He will actually bring to fruition. So it's more difference in terms of what your faith is putting you into believing. And that gives me confidence. I honestly don't think I'm that smart, to be quite honest. I do strongly believe that I have the ability to have people around me that can take us forward. And probably my strongest point is having people, convincing people or getting people to believe in a vision that we all should achieve or aspire to. I think if you look around this room, I can mention guys to you, they're much smarter than I am, honestly. I just don't think that I had the opportunity to lead the organization, and if I can go back and appoint people, I appoint the same people because they're smart. The problem that we have is we limit ourselves, and that's the issue. And we limit ourselves because of what I said in the beginning. We limit ourselves by saying, according to me, I can reach this, so my budget is going to be, that is it. How many of you going through the budget now have stretched yourself? How many? No. Let's be honest. It tells you a story, because you ultimately, the budget you're going to put forward is something that you believe you're not going to believe in a miracle. So if you don't expect miracles, how are you going to get miracles? So your expectation of where you want to get is a big part of where you're going to get. Because you can't, if you don't expect something, you're never going to get there. If you don't expect a miracle in life, you're not going to get there. So the reality is, what do you expect in life? If you expect an average life, you're going to get an average life. If you expect a brilliant life, if you expect miracles, if you expect to do 10 deals, you're going to get 10 deals. If you expect to make good money, you will make good money. I've never had people coming to me to say, look, Chris, I overachieved my budget 100-fold. Can I get a good budget? I always have people managing their budget and then coming to me, Chris, if I can get this, can I get it? Or people coming to me and say, look, I didn't get to my budget, so here are the 10 reasons why I didn't get there. So it's much easier to blame somebody, or to blame the cultures out there, or to blame the economy out there for not reaching budget. But what are we doing? How do we stretch ourselves to still make sure that we're actually overachieving? We don't, because it's not our expectation. It's not where we are. In your marriage life, in your personal life, in your relationship with your kids, what do you expect? As a leader in your organization called home, the wife and husband, what do you expect? You know, it's nice to say I expect of my son to overachieve because I want to drive my dreams through him, but it's not really good. You know, what's the expectation for myself? Yeah. And I think that's the problem. And because we limit ourselves, and it actually comes to another backbone of another issue that I have in life, and that's fear. Because us sitting here, why don't we stretch ourselves in budget? Because we have a fear that we won't achieve that. And that fear, on the one side, you limit yourself. On the other side, you don't want to get embarrassed. You don't want to not get the bonus. So your fear drives a lot of your expectation, because we're worried of what people around us are going to say. And sometimes, fear is something. It's almost like an illness. Fear is really limits us as individuals, because we're so fearful of so many things. So.
Yeah. Sure.
But I think that the topic of vision and leadership is so key in terms of your personal experience and where you go in life, that it's almost central in terms of what you become. So it's interesting for me that people, the way that they structure their lives, that they spend time on certain things in their life to get better at, in terms of exercising and looking better and all of that, but they don't spend enough time on developing their skill sets as a leader or their skill set as a good manager. If you go to the gym and the amount of time that people spend, especially when they're teenager boys, Dave, you really understand the importance of being a teenager and looking good. But I think in our environment, to really be a good leader, you need to spend time with that. It just doesn't just happen. So whatever motivation you use to be a good leader, as I said, in my life it's faith. In your life it may be something different. But you need to spend time with that to understand and to grow as a leader and as a business manager.
So in having a dream, a vision, and a specific expectation, with a lot of negativity that might take place around us, the news, and what do you listen to make sure that you keep focused on where you're going to and not allow this voices that you hear from different sides to influence you in terms of where you're going to?
Yeah, look, I think in a sense, it comes back to one of the comments I made, in a sense that, you need to know what you want to, where you want to go to. I made the joke during the Christmas party for you who attended that I could feel my decisions had impacted people in terms of the expansion process, because when I get into the lift, some people greet me and some people just look down. They just don't look at me. So I fully understand that. And I think that's when you make a decision, whether you're a CEO or whether you're a supervisor or manager, when you make a decision that's going to affect people's life, then you need to know for sure that what you're saying is, or what you're doing is actually that you're convinced in doing that. The point that I made about the coach and knowing where you're going and knowing the style of rugby or soccer or ice hockey, whatever you want to play, is if you sit outside, you can fault the way that they play, but you need to have somebody that believes so strongly in that style of play, or believes so strongly in that vision, or believes so strongly in where the company should be, that he should be able to answer any question. So I always say to my wife, if I make a decision, 50% of the company is going to like it and 50% is not going to like it. So if you take all the people in AFGRI now, including Hinterland, it's about 5,700 people working for the company or for the group. So you're bound to have people not agreeing with your decision. And the same with any other decision, whether, Leon, if you sit at Tarzana, the same. You're going to get to a point where you say, this is what we're going to do today, and we're going to expand the group, and we're going to put it into different companies, and the 50% going to say, yes, great, I'd love to be back in focus and to just do my own thing. And Animal Feed is going to say, yes, can I get all my debtors and creditors clerks back? And you have other people that's going to say, no, we're going to lose the one AFGRI. It's not going to happen. So if you're not in a point where you know this is where you need to go, you're going to become almost like a balloon that's just been floating around in the air, and then this airstream is going to take you somewhere, and that one is taking you in a different direction. And I can't live like that. So my confidence, to your question earlier, comes from the fact that I know when by the time that I change something, I know that's what I need to change. And I will drive that with everything I have. So it's not easy necessarily, because you sit with shareholders that you then first of all, so my process, maybe just to give you a bit of the background, is my first process was to go back to Neil and Mike and to say to them, look, this is what I feel we should do. And once I had their support, they bought in, I know I can go to PIC and to Kolofelo and to Louis. And then once I had the whole board support, then I know I can sit with my exco and say, look, by the way, I think this is what we're going to do. So it's a bit of a process to get there, but at the time when you decide, hey, Nico, you can't decide I'm going to buy 1,000 tons maize now, and then suddenly somebody has a different view and you change your mind every 5 minutes. You will never be in the market. So that's the issue. You need to be convinced if you make a decision that you can do that.
In terms of how you think of the vision of AFGRI, there's an interesting, you mentioned it to me once, that you believe in investing in the lives of people and not driving profit.
Yeah.
Talk to us about that.
So look, a profit is, a good body is the result of lots of exercise. Good profit is the result of doing many things right. So that is actually the focus. How I believe we're going to get to driving food security in Africa is we need to have the ingredients to be able to support people on the ground. And those ingredients, I believe we need to have a strong agricultural company with reach. We need to have a strong foods company that can process or industrialize Africa. And we need to have a strong financial services company. Why I say financial services company? You need to be able to link people that's on the ground with a financial opportunity so that they can interact with your agri company and your foods company. So those 3 areas will be our main focus for investment in the next 10 years. Because if I can get to a point where I have 4 times the size of Tinus's business in agriculture, of which 6 or 7 or 8 of those businesses are in Africa, then you will have a proper impact. But then you can really say to a small-scale farmer of what we're doing through ABBA in Zambia, how do I link you onto an app to move your product to a Checkers, to get paid on an app, so they get that ability of transacting. So those 3 areas makes a big difference. The 4th area in terms of our impact is really to then have a company like a Harvest Time that can drive people in terms of their development and connecting them into that infrastructure that we create. And those are the ABBA projects that we're doing. So that is really the, driving the vision. It's good and well to say this is where we're going, but you need to have at least, it doesn't help you to say, okay, we're going to Cape Town, but you don't have a car to get there. So at least you need to put the places and the the parts of the business in place so that you can get there. And that's why you need good people, because ultimately, if you dream about Africa, if I say to Jacob, look, let's do like a grain management in Africa, he can come up because it's their passion and it's their anointing. You must remember, in my life, I only have one anointing. I don't have 20 anointings. And the same with you. So if my purpose is to get people to operate within their anointing, I know I got to have an outperformer. So if Jacob operates in his anointing, if Noel operates in his anointing, you will get to a point where they will do their best because they will be fulfilled in what they're doing and they will be successful in what they're doing and they will drive their passion. So that's a key area for me. If I talk to, it's quite interesting because where's Juanita? She's not here. But my HR support, Juanita, going through this process of interviewing Ravasha. Now I need to write for the audit process, I need to write a note of my interview. But my interviews are different because in a sense, if you're a CA and you're an MBA, you assume that person has the qualifications, okay? Then you get a good reference from Tinus and then okay. So my discussion is more the softer side in terms of, okay, what do you believe in? How do you treat people? So it's a different scenario. So my interview note is completely different from just purely, on the intellect side of things, because I want to understand the emotions. I want to understand how she deals with problems. If I've seen it when I just joined AFGRI, we had a credit manager in financial services. I'm not going to mention names. It was an old seasoned financial guy that came out of First National Bank. Now, he was very difficult, extremely difficult. Now, the marketers on the other side were very good guys, but and just wanted to do deals for the farmers. But from an emotional point of view, the guy at the bank was on a different level because he came from the bank. The one thing about banks, they teach you end up in so many scenarios that you have to become emotional. You have to try and manage your emotions. But the interesting thing is I get in so many meetings, I had so many meetings, credit discussion meetings, where you could clearly see that the marketing guys were actually correct. But because of the way that they quickly get, almost angry and they couldn't manage the emotions, they will always lose the argument. Because the moment that you get angry in a discussion, you lost. So all the credit guy had to do is just get to the point where he just managed them to a point where they're going to switch into their angry phase, and then it's gone. And that's the problem, because guys who can't manage that, tend to not be good negotiators because they tend to lose that side. Yeah. But in your life, being able to manage your intellect, being able to manage your emotions and your spiritual life is important.
So I wonder if you all hear this specific concept that Chris is putting through here today, is that he's got a specific vision as an individual. And the way that he could take that personal why, the why he exists, the vision that he's got for his life, how he could brought that into a company, and that became the vision of a company. And what I'm hearing Chris saying today is that there's a lot of leaders that then join this company, not specifically because, yes, they buy into that vision, but there's vision and dreams and expectations that are sitting in the minds and the hearts of leaders that are sitting here. That if you bring that to the table, this is how this specific vision will be accomplished. And that all of us that are leaders know that we've got that ability to dream about something that specifically needs to be done through your life. And imagine what can happen in AFGRI if each and every leader work from that perspective to say, I have got a specific vision in my life. And where I specifically choose to live that vision out is to join a vision of a leader like Chris. Imagine what can happen in our company if all of us start thinking about your personal vision. What is your personal why you exist? And just learn from what Chris has shared with us today. All of us has got a story. And in your story, you've learned a lot about leadership. But in terms of leadership and connecting leadership to vision is something that I'm learning today, is that I can have a personal vision in my life. There's always room for a company like AFGRI that are making room for people to come and live that vision out. And that allows us to move beyond what we ever thought is possible. How do you feel about that, Chris? Empowering people to live out their vision.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, that is key. I think that the new structure that we're in will actually embrace that. We made the mistakes, and I think there's one thing that we just need to clarify, in the sense that it doesn't mean that we're not making mistakes. By all means, being leaders or being managers and understanding where you're coming from and praying about it doesn't necessarily mean you're not getting it wrong, because sometimes we do still get it wrong. We still make wrong decisions. We're still not performing where we should perform. So there's always room to improve, and that's going back to the point of the cultures. There's always room to improve, and I think being able to empower people is critical in the way that we're going forward. We haven't done it enough in the past, to be quite honest with you. I don't think that the people are able to perform to the levels, because in a sense there were too many decisions made by us upstairs, and it's not good for an organization. So driving down the accountability and responsibility is important, but also being able to make mistakes in an environment where it's accepted to make mistakes is also important, because when you drive empowerment, you need to understand that if you drive empowerment, people are going to make mistakes, and if they make mistakes, you should not be then the one to fire them because of their mistakes. You should be the one to encourage them to say, okay, what do you learn from that? Let's go forward. And that's not, we haven't done that enough in the past, and we haven't empowered people enough in the past. The point that I want to make in that is almost to say that if I take, I'm not sure if Anina is a good example, but let's say if I take Marcel and Anina, I'm joking with you, but if I take Anina as an example, to get the best out of her work-wise, I need to allow her to raise her own creativity in the organization. If I'm telling her the whole time to do what she needs to do, it's just me trying to lift myself out, but I'm never going to see her full potential. And I think if I can encourage the guys sitting here, the senior guys and the leaders, allow the people to make mistakes and allow the people to be empowered and to be creative, because we started the innovation program 2 years ago. And it was amazing to see the ideas coming through. And yes, some of those ideas we took further, some of those ideas didn't work. But we need to allow people to bring that creative juice out again. And hopefully the structures and hopefully the CEOs and the senior managers will do that. Hopefully they will allow that, because ultimately if I allow you to develop as a holistic person, I need to allow you to bring that development into the group. If I can do that, I'm not going to get the best out of the staff in AFGRI. So it is really something that as an ExCo team going forward we will drive, and something that we will support the CEOs in doing, is to drive that creativity and drive that development. Yeah. Otherwise we're going to have a couple of people that looks like us, feels like us, do what we do, and it's not going to be creative. It's interesting, I had Louis van Ziene speaking at just after the Agri Group transaction took place in 2014. I invited him to one of our mancos to talk to senior management about what it means with a bigger shareholder. And the one point he made that actually stuck with me was that, now that you have an international shareholder like Fairfax, who's really out there in the world, they sit, I think their market cap is probably now $15 billion. They sit on, $34 billion of assets. So it's a completely different environment. They don't look at as a local player like a VKB or one of our local competitors. They want to compare you with the food companies out there or the agricultural companies out in the world. And it actually happened. Literally within a year, the discussions at the board was, okay, how do you do this outside South Africa? Where do you compare? I haven't had a comparison in the board with local companies, because they want to see you going out there. They want to see you grow. So it's a different environment, and I think that's where we are. We should be very careful. Yes, you should benchmark yourself continuously. That's a different scenario. But you must be very careful to say, I want to be like this one or I want to be like that one, because that's not you. You know, I can never ask Tinus to be like me because he's got 10 times more talents than me. So you just can't do that. You know, you can't just say, I want to be like that one, because you're unique. You need to create your own creativity and your own benefits and your own holistic approach.
Great. So Chris, in terms of I think this is my last question, and then I actually want to...
They don't want to ask questions.
They don't want to...
I spoke about fear. Yes.
Your specific expectations for 2018, and I know you're not just looking at 1 year in your life. What are the expectations that you have? What do you want to see?
So I prayed about it over December, and I received 3 words. The one is the 3 are discipline, growth, and joy. So I have an expectation to grow this year personally, and for AFGRI to grow. I definitely have an expectation to have more joy in my life and more joy in AFGRI. And I know that it will only come if I'm disciplined in what I do. So I need to be disciplined at home. I need to be disciplined at work. So that's important for me. The one thing this is my spiritual part, but I also believe that it's time to receive the inheritance of the Lord. So it's another word I receive, that it's not because I will receive not because I'm great or just, it's just because I have a Father who loves me.
Yes.
And that's really it.
Wow, great.
So that's me. So no questions, Dave? Nothing.
Oh, there is.
Yeah, so it's 2 parts of the same coin. The one can't operate without the other. You know, actually, I'm having Johan next to me. In a big sense, he's a much better manager than I am. Always helped me. I'm not a detail person, so I think if you're a good person, a good leader, good manager, you need to understand your drawbacks, the areas that's really you're bad in, the areas you're good in. I'm bad at admin, I'm bad at communicating, so sorry about that, but I need to have somebody next to me that's good in that. So the one is not more important than the other one. You can't be a good leader and not have good managers. You can't have good managers and not a leader. And I've seen that, and I think there are very good examples out there in the business world that you can see that. But my take on it, you need good managers that understands detail, that understands structuring, and you need good leaders that can dream and say in 5 years that's where I want to be.
I just wanted to know, in your own words, when you say you want to be more disciplined at home as well as in AFGRI, what is discipline to you on a personal level?
Doing the things that I should do in time, and not just sometimes let it go, and act in the things that worries me or concerns me, and be active in the areas which I believe is still shortfalls that I need to look at. It's a good question. Can I have an easier one? No, you know what? I think that for me, fortunately, I almost have at some stage I start to get worried. So I almost have this, I would say spiritual, but some people just say gut feel, but I almost have this ability to understand things are not going right. And that's what happened with the expansion process. I do believe that we have a great vision in the sense that what we need to do over the next 50 years. So it's not a 2-year vision. We're not going to get there in 2 years. We're going to get there in 50 years. So I'm not going to be there. The next generation is going to be there. Some of the people will be here. But I think for me, it's to say that if you understand that to manage that course, somebody says that a good CEO is almost like a conductor in a symphonic orchestra. You need to understand when the music needs to go faster, and you need to understand when the music needs to slow down. And I think that's what a lot of time I try to understand with people around me. I know, as I said here, that I stretch the people too much with the expansion process. I know that. And you could see it at the end of that process. People will start They couldn't get to everything. So I understand that. I fully understand that. And I also know that it's time now to settle down and for people to go slow a bit, but for people to focus on the right areas. So you understand that in an organization. I think if you're there long enough, you almost get to read the body language of people around you. And you pick up in terms of the things coming through that's popping up, what pops up. And if you get and you sit in front of your desk and the top page of 32 people are all problems, then that's the strain on the company is too much. And we've done it. I apologize for it because we have had to do it. You can't do an expansion or restructuring process and it takes you 3 years. You have to get in. Once you make a decision, you go in and you do it and you get it done. It's unfortunate. The worst thing that I had to do ever is, the worst thing that anybody can do is to retrench people. So I remember in closing down the trading department in 2009, it was, I struggled for 6-7 months to find out what I should do with this company that's just losing money every month. It's just losing money. No, you will remember that. It was terrible. So at the time when I made the decision, that was a Wednesday. The Monday I had, after Friday morning, I had the whole trading division in here. Nico, you will remember that. And I had Malco in here to say, by the way, we're closing down. So that's the worst thing. But sometimes you have to do that. But when you do it, you need to read the body language of people and understand what they can handle, what they can't handle. So I don't know how it really happens, though, to be honest. I can't pinpoint to say this is what I do. It's really probably just being part of, understanding the people around you and knowing them. I do believe you need to be able to know people. I can sit in a meeting and I can see how I can read the body language. If I sit in a meeting with Ross, I can tell you he's going to say this now because his body language is telling me that. And the same with other people, it's just a matter of, I suppose, you get to know the people around you. What do the All Blacks say? You never fail, you just learn. So I suppose in a sense that's what I'm trying to do. So yeah, we make wrong decisions, and when I do make wrong decisions, I do sit down and understand where did I go wrong. If somebody close to me resigns, I want to know why. Is there a reason? If we restructure a company and it's not getting to the point, where did we go wrong? So when we fail, I almost use the failure as motivation in itself to say, but nobody likes to fail. And nobody likes to be embarrassed. So you need to get to a point where you understand that failure. Otherwise, next time you're going to fail for the same reason. The saying is that it's only a fool who does the same thing over and over and expect a different outcome. So if you fail, you need to understand what you need to change so that next time you're not going to do the same. And in a sense, that's probably what the reason why I did the expansion process as well. In going through that uneasy process, the one thing I realized during that 2-3 months when I went through that was that I hate not making budgets and failing our budgets. It's terrible. And I mean, if you look at, I don't know how many people can sit here today that can honestly say over the last 3 years, every year they met their budget. I think Grain Management and a couple of others can say that, but generally we failed, So how bad it is for me. I mean, it's you guys come to me, I'm the ham in a sandwich. So now I need to go to my shareholders and board and say, oh, by the way, sorry, but this year is going to be bad again. And why is that? So just sitting there during those 3 months and say, okay, am I going to do it the same again this year? Will I go through the same process, the same people, and trust them with the same things and keep the structures the same? What is going to make me perform suddenly as a group CEO? So you then have to go through a process to say, but then if you start to change, what do you change? And I think that's the key element. So when you understand, when you go through failure and you do an analysis of your failure, understand what you do from there onwards to change it. That's key. And that's where, for me, faith comes in to say, okay, now what do I change to make sure that So I fully expect this year, going forward 1st April, that next year is going to be a great year because I think we settled down as a company. I think there's some small issues still to be resolved. We have great people coming into the exco team. But now suddenly I have a different team. So my expectation is much higher this year to perform than last year. Look, just to clarify, I think, so first of all, culture is driven from the top. So, if I'm not diverse, the chances that somebody down below is going to be diverse is almost zero. And because the key is the way, it's not just me, but you can look any organization, and the culture of the CEO and what he does is normally what is driven down. I think being able to tell you that we have a diverse exco team, more diverse from First April than what we ever had, will definitely drive more diversity in the group. I strongly believe that. If you look around this table, I can tell you now, if you sat in the same meeting 8 years ago, it would have looked completely different. Leon, is that correct? So it's true. So diversity was driven. I mean, when I started, we were not even compliant as a BE rating. And the reason why I feel strongly about it is because we are a diverse society. So I can't just go and find the best 10 white people. It's not, I don't like it. First of all, I don't get those cultures in. I don't get other cultures to give me to where I can learn from. So we need to find the best people. And there are good people, colors, shapes, whatever, you know. So, and when you do that, then diversity is driven not only from a culture point of view, but also from a gender point of view. So I do hope that diversity in the group, gender-wise and culture-wise, will continue to grow. And in that, it actually answers your question, because if you're good in what you do, you should be appointed as the branch manager. So there's no policy in the group that states we're not going to appoint women. Here's Ravasha, the first group CEO, our CFO that we ever had. You know, so that should tell you a story. We want to uplift people because they're good, not because of how they look or how they feel. Okay. So I don't believe in rituals, for starters. But what I do have is so what I love to do if I don't get to bed too early is to wake up in the morning to have prayer time, and then to drop off my wife drops off my daughter, and I drop off the boys at school. I have 2 in varsity now, so they will drop them off self. And then when I come in the morning, what I tend to do, if I haven't had time at home to pray, I will come in and I will pray. I'll wait for my cappuccino first. So you can probably say my ritual is to get my cappuccino. So Maurice and Lynx know, I don't know how they know, but when I walk into the building, when I get there, Lynx comes with my cappuccino. So that's awesome. And then I start. So I ask Maurice to try and not fill up my diary from 9 o'clock, 8:30. So I normally come in at about 7:30. And I tend to use that first hour really just to either pray or read a little bit of the newspaper, catch up, and then I start my day at 8:30. I unfortunately sit in too many meetings during the day. So when I leave here at 5:30 or 6, it's generally after some days I had 15 meetings in a day, some days I had 5. It really depends on what's happening. I like to have an open door policy, even though some people say if Maurice is there, it's not open door, because he stops the people. But it's easier for me to talk to people. I don't always like people just to arrange meetings. It's easy for me to have a call with Tinus and say, can we do this, or with anybody else, or we had an issue with Land Bank over December to sort it out. But if you talk about my day and my diary and what I do, love to open day with prayer if I can. Don't always get it right. I love to spend time with my boys in the car and with my girl at night. So when I get home, it's really family time. I don't like to answer my phone during night time. It's really family time. Don't invite me over a weekend. I'll say no. I hate functions over weekends because we're so busy and we're so much away from home. And my relationship with my Creator, my relationship with my family are the 2 most important things. So I need to spend time on that. So I need to work at that. Work is 3rd priority. Yes.
Sorry, I have to ask, do you exercise?
Can't you see? I see Jacob is shaking his head. No, I don't. I should. Yeah, no, it's natural fitness. No, you know what? I don't. I should. I do try every now and again. So I love to play golf, but I don't get enough to play golf. I really chase Tinus and Jacob to arrange golf games, but I not always get there. But I should. The thing for me is I can't. I don't see the value in spending 5 times on a golf course over the weekend rather than spending time with my family. So I rather go to an ice hockey game or to a netball game or to a rugby game over the weekend than try and play golf by myself. So in that sense, weekends I don't train or play golf over weekends, which means that I really only play golf if there's a corporate day or if we can get away on a Friday afternoon, but that's really it. I don't exercise otherwise. And golf, Tinus, how many times did we play last year? 3 times. So 2 times. So that's also not really an answer. So I don't really. Very important. So mentorship and coaching is extremely important. I see it as, when I had in my life at a Standard Merchant Bank and Absa Corporate Merchant, I had good mentors. I learned a lot from them. I had a mentor in my personal life from a spiritual point of view that I always go to. I believe you get to a point where you almost become friends in a sense. It's not just a mentor. So I strongly believe in mentorship. I honestly, the moment, I don't believe in arrogance. I need to tell you that, because arrogance for me is almost a red flag to say that any CEO that becomes arrogant in what he has achieved, you must immediately disinvest from that company, because an arrogant person by default will not necessarily take criticism. I don't mind criticism. So if people criticize me, it's fine. It's good. It allows me the ability to look at what I've done and then to internalize that and see whether they're wrong or right, in terms of whether I can use it. But mentorship is extremely important. So never shy away if there's somebody that can teach you something. I remember when I just joined, I don't know if Cornelius, if you remember that, but when I just joined AFGRI, I actually, in the first 2 months, I interviewed a lot of people, and I literally took, in financial services, I took, Ellen, those brought me a list of the people working for financial services, and I didn't know anybody, so I just said randomly these people, and I interviewed about probably 4 or 15 people. And I learned so much about them, junior people, senior people, in terms of what's wrong within the environment and what we should change. And that's the thing is, you can learn from anybody. I'm not a person that can say I can only learn from the expert. You can literally learn from anybody. So mentorship is very important, extremely important. Yes, ma'am.
Speaking of that whole work-life balance and making time spending
Yeah.
weekends is strictly time, what advice would you give to especially the younger people that are coming to the organization who might feel the need to constantly push, constantly working, and might feel that doing something like that might actually be career limiting in a sense?
Yeah, look, you need to, my take is you need to be responsible for what you've been appointed over. In other words, you need to be a good steward. So if you're currently sitting in a supervisory role, you need to make sure that you're doing the best that you can do in that particular role, even if it does mean that you work an hour later at night or whatever. I come from a background where hard work was the only way. So when I joined Standard Corporate and Merchant after studying theology, I did my MBA part-time, so it was 3 years part-time through 6. And it was tough. I tell you, it was really tough because we left in the mornings 5:30 from Hatfield. I stayed in Hatfield, my wife and I. We were just married, no kids. And I came back 6:30, and then after a long day, and then my classes started, and I was at home at 10:30. And over weekends we had group sessions, group work. And so there is that season. I mean, I had to do it for 3 years. So I had that season in my life where I had to push hard, where I had to work at it and make sure. And my wife obviously was next to me supporting me. I have a lovely wife. So I had to get there. I couldn't have done it otherwise. So you need to understand, and you can't. A problem with a lot of the youngsters these days is they just want to step in, they just want to get into the high life, and It's actually a mistake. It's a mistake that you make, and the problem that you create for yourself. Because at some stage, if you don't learn, if you don't come from those ranks and hard work, at some stage you're going to get to a high level and you're going to get pushed, and you're not going to have the ability to push through. So my advice is, yes, always make sure that priorities are right in terms of your life. But if there's a period in your life where hard work is required, you need to discuss that with your husband or your boyfriend or whatever and your family, and that you have to push hard. But it can't be like, it's non-sustainable if you do it forever. Because it would be bad for me to be 60 years old and I missed all my boys' hockey games or my daughter's netball games. So for me to quickly go off to a netball game and then come back and work till 6:30, I'll do that. Why not? And my earlier years, what I used to do is I leave at 5 so I can get the best time with the family, and then I sit and work at 9. But you need to manage your own life, but you need to keep that balance and manage it. So the process of emotional intelligence, so there's a difference between emotional intelligence and emotions. Just to clarify that. So emotionally, a lot of people are, so what is interesting is that because of the different focus invested companies, we have different parts of the group that's in a very good state emotionally, and different parts that's actually in a bad state emotionally. We have decided last year to do a survey among staff members at a board level, so we will drive that at some stage during this year. To do a survey to see, okay, where the people. I didn't want to do it last year because of the expansion process. I knew everybody's in a bad emotional state, but I want to do it so that we can. And the reason why, so if everybody goes through the biggest concern of people in an organization is change. Now, fortunately, I changed so often that people got used to it, but it's not necessarily the ideal. So the biggest problem is that people, when they hear about change, that's exactly why I called the changes an expansion program, not restructuring, because restructuring immediately has a negative connotation. Oh, I'm going to lose my work. So our process was we're expanding the group, and therefore we need to be agile. And that's what we wanted to drive. But still people were reluctant to believe that and saying, no, people are going to lose their jobs. But I think now that we know that, people has gone through the process really focused, now people are a little bit more relaxed. And we will do a survey to identify the areas where there are emotional problems in organization. Yeah, I rely very heavily on Maurice to a large extent, but yeah, what I will do is I will sit down with her, and if there's an important meeting, like for instance, today I have a special board meeting on a company later this afternoon, so I will then sit and say, look, by the way, this invite is going to come, just make sure that you schedule it. I need to go down to Cape Town next week, so I'll have the discussion. So for me, generally, if something pops up like Land Bank, the issue of Land Bank in December, I will get onto it immediately. But it comes back to the point of discipline, in the sense of saying, you know what, there are certain things that you have to get to. My problem is, and I'm honest in that, is that I get so many emails that sometimes I just don't respond timelessly to some of those emails, and if I see it's not really important, I'll let it slip, which I need to get to. So that's another answer to the question. So it's really just having that communication with Maurice to say these are the important things. Normally, when the CEOs approach me, I'll react immediately. So if Tinus or Roland or Priyan or Bongani will send me a mail or WhatsApp, I like to work on open communication in the sense of my phone, WhatsApp. Because I'm in meetings a lot of the time, I will say to the guys, just send me a WhatsApp, I'll phone you back. But if I see there's a missed call from Tinus, I'll phone him back, or from Roland. So obviously people around me, my Exco team, they have my attention 24 hours a day. But in terms of priority of meetings, if you ask for a meeting and get shifted 3 months later, then I don't view that as very important now. It may be important later, but not now.